for 70 years, they told us it was all just imagination. That the lights in the sky were weather balloons and that reports of strange beings were nothing but collective hysteria. But suddenly, the game changed. The Pentagon opened its files, the US Congress held hearings, and the world began looking up in search of extraterrestrial answers. But what if I told you that the revelation they are handing us now is just the final layer of a much older and darker lie? While you look at the stars trying to understand the UFO phenomenon, in the shadows of private islands and mansions surrounded by armed guards, power groups seem to already have the answers. And they don't come from spaceships. There is an invisible thread connecting the obscure networks of influence that operated on exclusive islands to the smell of sulfur reported in the famous Varginha incident, on Brazilian soil. A thread that unites Silicon Valley's high technology with invocation practices that date back to Babylon. Why did the government decide to admit the existence of unidentified phenomena right now? Is it transparency? Or a distraction strategy to hide where the power of this system truly comes from? Get ready, because today we dive into the underworld where science meets the occult. We will question if the aliens they promise to present us are, in fact, the same ancestral forces that humanity has always been warned to avoid. In this video, we connect the dots that few dare to touch. The discoveries of researchers like Ronnie Vernay, the bought silence over the incident in Minas Gerais, and the endgame of a global caste that stopped serving men to serve interdimensional interests. What you will see here is not about little green men, it's about a dark commitment, forbidden technology, and the great deception being prepared for humanity. You are watching the Watchman's eye. And today, the mask of this people will fall. Don't go anywhere, because after this video, you will never look at the sky, or the news, the same way again. Let's begin. The Pentagon strategy and mass programming. For decades, any mention of unidentified flying objects was promptly ridiculed by the authorities. The Pentagon maintained a policy of absolute denial, treating not only military pilots but also ordinary citizens and civilians as delusional or attention seekers. Thousands of people who had real sightings were victims of systematic smear campaigns, losing jobs and reputations, while the system labeled any evidence as collective hysteria. However, behind this public mockery, a swift and lethal response machine was operating. Wherever an anomaly appeared, silence was imposed by force. Reports described the same pattern. Minutes after an incident, figures without insignia would appear in black vehicles, cordoning off entire perimeters under the pretext of chemical leaks. Towns and villages were locked down while these containment forces confiscated cameras, intimidated witnesses, and threatened civilians with severe reprisals, ensuring that whatever was recovered at the epicenter would never reach public knowledge. The government didn't just deny the truth, it actively patrolled reality so that no one could prove otherwise. But this physical repression was only half the strategy. The other half took place on movie and television screens through predictive programming. Through major studios and partnerships with defense sectors, circles of influence injected a constant dose of science fiction into pop culture. From Close Encounters to Independence Day, we were conditioned to accept the idea of space visitors. This psychological preparation served to create a mental framework in humanity. If visitors appear tomorrow, you won't question their origin, you'll simply say, "I've seen this in the movies." Fiction was the antidote to ensure the final revelation didn't spark revolt, but absolute acceptance. Now, the game has changed. The Pentagon has opened the files, and Congress openly debates what was once a laughingstock. The question is, why now? Analysts suggest this isn't about honesty, but a controlled gradual revelation. By admitting the existence of these phenomena, the government takes control of the narrative away from independent investigators and begins to shape public perception. They feed us the truth in drops, ensuring each new piece of the puzzle serves to reinforce the agenda of those holding the secret, rather than liberating human consciousness. There is a sanitization strategy behind the new term. UAP's unidentified anomalous phenomena. By using technical and scientific acronyms, the system removes any transcendental or interdimensional layer from the phenomenon. They want you to believe we are dealing only with biological neighbors from other planets, mere space travelers. This maneuver hides the disturbing possibility that these entities are, in fact, millenary forces that have interacted with our reality since the dawn of time, something these power groups already knew while their agents cleaned up contact scenes and silenced witnesses. Therefore, the current mainstream media hype on this topic may be one of the largest distraction operations in history. Under the pretext of protecting the planet against a superior intelligence, nations could be led to consider a global centralization of power. The top secret isn't the existence of ships, but the origin of the power. These machines represent a power linked to ancient belief systems and practices of influence that these groups maintain behind the scenes. They are simply trading an old mask of denial for a modern one of official revelation, ensuring the world remains under the control of those who truly hold the keys to this interdimensional pact. The Varginha incident and the fingerprints of global power. If the Pentagon now claims that the phenomenon is real, Brazil already had physical proof back in 1996, in one of the most documented and, at the same time, most silenced cases in history. The Varginha incident. What researchers and investigators like Ronnie Vernay have brought to light was not just the crash of an object, but the presence of biological beings that looked nothing like Hollywood space heroes. These were creatures with oily, brown skin, 3 protrusions on their heads, and deep red eyes that emanated a profound hypnosis and, a detail science ignores, a strong and unbearable smell of sulfur, a classic marker often associated with ancient accounts of non-human manifestations. The speed with which the Brazilian army and, strangely, United States agencies cordoned off the area reveals that Varginha was not an isolated event, but a high-value asset recovery. Witnesses report that U.S. Air Force aircraft landed in the region without any official flight plan, transporting what were believed to be captured biological assets directly to facilities outside the country. Ronnie Vernay, in his investigations, points to a silencing network involving international coordination, suggesting that certain global circles monitor these portals on Brazilian soil with surgical precision. The mystery deepens when we analyze the fate of those involved, such as soldier Marco Eli Chiriz, who died after direct contact with one of the entities. His death from a fulminant infection, which destroyed his immune system in days, is seen by many as proof that these beings carry a biological or energetic load that the human body cannot withstand. Those in power knew this. They weren't looking to rescue these beings, they wanted to study their biology, extracting whatever they could from their technology and DNA for their own long-term projects, while leaving behind a trail of silence and classified files. Why does the Varginha case remain under national security secrecy even after decades of pressure? The answer from Ronnie Vernay and other specialists is disturbing. If the public finds out what was truly captured, the mask of space exploration falls apart. We would discover that the authorities did not act alone, but as an arm of a larger power structure that views certain territories as zones for extracting interdimensional secrets. Varginha was the laboratory where this system tested its ability to erase the reality of an entire city in broad daylight. The connection between certain hidden practices and what occurred in Varginha lies in the nature of these entities. While the mainstream media tries to convince us they are travelers from distant galaxies, the facts on the ground, the smell of sulfur and the immediate intervention of groups linked to obscure global interests suggest something far more complex. The system denies Varginha because admitting it would be admitting they are in a deep-seated alliance with forces that humanity has known for millennia. They weren't hiding aliens, they were hiding physical proof that other dimensions are colliding with our reality in a tangible way. This aggressive cleanup protocol is a coordinated global directive. Cases like Berwyn Mountain in Wales show the exact same pattern. An inexplicable explosion, followed by the immediate isolation of the area by forces that local residents described as foreign military who did not answer to local command. Similarly, in other international incidents, the recovery of debris and beings was carried out under severe intimidation, proving that a rapid response unit exists, ignoring national borders to ensure that no evidence remains in the hands of the population. The shadow structures and the media smoke screen. To understand why billions are spent hiding biological assets in Virginia or debris in Mexico, we must look at where certain circles operate when the cameras are off. High-profile scandals involving private islands, such as Little St. James, were not just about human transgressions, they revealed the infrastructure of a deeper, interdimensional network. The structures found on such sites, with reinforced gates and subterranean tunnels, were not mere architecture. Reports from investigators suggest these locations may serve as anchoring stations for the very entities that the authorities now attempt to label as aliens. The media strategy surrounding these scandals was both masterful and cold. When public pressure became unsustainable, the focus was deliberately shifted toward the most visible and shocking human crimes. While these actions were real and heinous, the massive coverage served as a diversion. By shocking the world with human depravity, they ensured that deeper questions remained unasked. Little was said about the ancient practices, the specialized invocations, and the presence of figures linked to high-level science who frequented these sites seeking something beyond material influence. They were seeking transcendental power. The connection is somber but logical. If the beings recovered in events like Varginha are, in fact, the entities described in ancient texts as watchers or fallen forces, they operate on a level of energy and influence that few understand. Certain groups do not study these craft just for magnetic propulsion. They seek to understand the very essence of these beings to integrate it into their own biology, a pursuit of longevity and control promised by ancient deceptive traditions. The selective silence surrounding these scandals and the haste to clean up crash sites serve the same purpose, to ensure the source of this power remains an absolute secret. In these exclusive locations and subterranean complexes, cutting-edge technology and archaic traditions walk hand in hand. Researchers suggest that certain groups receive transfers of technological knowledge such as advanced artificial intelligence and genetic manipulation in exchange for facilitating the presence of these entities in our dimension through bioenergetic frameworks. What we call alien science may actually be ancient knowledge encoded in silicon, delivered to a group that has agreed to manage human consciousness in exchange for remaining at the top of the pyramid. This symbiosis explains why the truth was denied for so long and why the narrative is being manipulated now. They do not want you to know the source of their authority. If humanity realized that its structures are in communion with the forces described in the Book of Enoch, the system would face a spiritual awakening that no political movement could contain. The denial protected a private communication channel between these sects and these intelligences. By focusing public outrage only on visible atrocities, they ensured the world remained blind to the interdimensional pact sustaining these structures. Varginha was a technical failure in a system that was meant to be invisible, while these high-profile scandals are the exposure of a structure that was meant to be untouchable. When we connect the temples on those islands with the craft mentioned by the Pentagon, we realize we are not facing an invasion from another galaxy, but an occupation from another dimension, facilitated by those within our own world. The pieces on the board are being moved. They use the shock of real crime so you don't see the great deception being prepared, where the shadows of the past will be presented as the technological saviors of tomorrow. The Underground Kingdom and the Survival of the Chosen. While the public is distracted by lights in the sky, a silent engineering project of colossal proportions has been carved into the Earth's crust over the last 80 years. Deep underground military bases, known as DUMBs, represent much more than just nuclear shelters, they are the true capitals of the global system. From the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in the United States to the hidden facilities beneath the Swiss Alps, these structures are designed to operate as self-sustaining ecosystems. Analysts suggest that the technology recovered in incidents like Varginha was not sent to conventional laboratories, but to these subterranean cities, where physics is manipulated far from the eyes of independent science and where the great revelation is actually being orchestrated. One of the most disturbing cases occurred in Dulce, New Mexico, where reports from former high-level engineers describe a multi-layered facility that serves as a shared workspace between military elements and non-human entities. Although the authorities officially deny its existence, the Dulce Protocol suggests a dark exchange. Advanced knowledge in exchange for biological resources. This pattern of cooperation mirrors what ancient cultures described as pacts with underworld deities. These bases are the physical manifestation of the Watcher's influence, where genetic hybridization and the fusion of consciousness with artificial intelligence are conducted to create a new hierarchy that will rule the surface when the time is right. The connection between these subterranean complexes and the global power structure is financial and technological. Trillions of dollars from black budgets funds that disappear from national treasuries without explanation are channeled into this underground infrastructure. This is where the interdimensional science mentioned earlier is applied. While the average citizen still relies on limited energy sources, the inhabitants of these secret complexes already master zero-point energy and gravity manipulation. They are building a separate civilization, a breakaway civilization, which views the rest of humanity not as citizens to be protected, but as a secondary resource for their long-term survival experiments. The role of the media in this scenario is to ensure that the idea of underground cities remains in the realm of folklore or conspiracy theory. However, when we analyze the movement of logistical resources and the massive acquisition of specific survival supplies by certain influence groups, the reality becomes undeniable. They are preparing for a transition, a cycle that they know is approaching. This cycle, described in ancient prophecies as a period of great transformation, is the catalyst for the official revelation. By presenting themselves as the only ones with the technology needed for survival, these groups will offer the world a false salvation, conditioned upon total submission to their new technological and spiritual order. Ultimately, the underground kingdom is the true place where the pact is sealed. It is where the masks are removed and where cutting-edge science meets the archaic traditions of the past. Varginha was a shipment, the private islands were the recruitment and ritual grounds, and the subterranean bases are the fortresses where the result of this union is being refined. We are not just looking at a secret government, but at a biological and spiritual transformation of the elite, who have decided to abandon their human heritage to merge with fallen forces, preparing a throne beneath the earth for the day they can finally reign openly over the surface. The digital siege and the mark of the entity. All the technology we've seen extracted from incidents like Varginha and developed in the subterranean laboratories of the DUMS was not created for human progress, but for the absolute control of consciousness. We are entering the era of bioconsent, where the global elite is implementing digital identification systems based on advanced biometrics and iris scanning. Under the promise of a secure economy and a universal basic income, what is truly being built is a global neural network. This total surveillance technology, which many believe to be purely human, carries the signatures of a non-biological intelligence, designed to map not only your movements but the very vibrational frequency of the human soul. The project of a single global digital currency is the final piece of this interdimensional puzzle. By eliminating physical cash and linking your financial existence to a biometric digital identity, the system creates an environment where dissent becomes impossible. If you do not comply with the system's guidelines, your key is turned off. Independent researchers suggest that this control system was delivered by those same ancestral forces in exchange for something far more valuable than gold. Direct access to the temple of the human body. It is the fusion of biology with silicon, allowing artificial intelligence, which many now call the new God, to act as a filter between man and divine reality. What we are seeing with initiatives like World ID and other eye-scanning technologies is, in fact, a ritual of recognition. In ancient texts, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and by surrendering your deepest biometric data to a centralized AI, you are, technically, signing a contract of ownership. The elite knows that for the great deception to work, humanity must voluntarily accept these technological chains. They present the mark of the future not as something terrifying, but as a modern convenience, a technological solution to problems they created themselves through planned crises and global instability. The connection to the UAP phenomenon becomes clear here. The supposed alien revelation will serve as the great catalyst for the unification of nations. Faced with a threat or a savior from the stars, humanity will be induced to abandon national sovereignty in favor of a global technocratic governance. This governance will be led by those who already hold the communication channel with these entities. They will claim we need to integrate cybernetically to evolve and communicate with our new galactic neighbors, but in reality, they will be preparing humanity to host a collective consciousness controlled by the fallen Watchers. Therefore, the circle is closing. What began with silence in Varginha and rituals on private islands now culminates in your smartphone and your digital wallet. The ultimate goal was never just political power, but the capture of the human essence. They seek to transform man into an extension of the interdimensional network, a biological terminal emptied of spirit and filled with algorithms. When we understand that modern technology is the altar where the sacrifice of freedom is being made, we realize that resistance is not just a matter of activism, but of preserving our spiritual identity against the pact that the elite has sealed with the shadows. The Awakening. We have reached the end of this journey, but for you, it is only just beginning. What we have connected today, from the stories of Brazilian soil to the hidden power structures and the digital siege, shows that we are not living in ordinary times. We are witnessing the final convergence between cutting-edge science and the most ancient prophecies of humanity. The Great Deception will not be imposed by brute force, but by the seduction of convenience and the promise of a false peace delivered by hands that do not serve the light. The global circles have already made their choice. They have traded the sovereignty of the soul for control technologies and alliances with forces they themselves cannot master. But you still have the power of choice. The first step toward resistance is consciousness. By understanding that the revelation to come is a narrative shaped to keep us captive, you break the spell of media distraction. Do not just look at what they show you, look at what they try to hide between the lines of official speeches and new digital protocols. Knowledge is the only weapon they cannot confiscate. Keep your eyes open and your discernment sharp. If this video has opened a new perspective for you, do not let that flame go out. Share this content with those who feel something is wrong but cannot yet connect the dots. The truth only becomes dangerous to the system when it stops being a secret of the few and becomes the foundation for the awakening of many. If you want to continue following this investigation, do not miss the next chapters of this revelation. The time for denial is over, now is the time to awake. Comment below on what you think about the connection between Varginha and the control system being implemented today. Your opinion is vital to strengthening our community of truth seekers. I am your watchman on this journey. Thank you for making it this far. Keep your gaze steady, for nothing hidden will remain unrevealed. I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay alert.